Hey guys, the Chief Ash here today to talk about the new horror movie that has recently hit the U.S. shores, Goodnight Mommy. It's a film from Austria, and well, it's a movie. I classify it as torture porn. So if you're a big fan of movies like Saw and Hostel and stuff like that, this is definitely one of those movies that's for you. If you're just looking for a good old, it looked kind of like a monster movie or like a demon possession movie and stuff like that, but the marketing was a little bit misleading in that, so it's not quite for those type of people. It's a decent movie. It's got a little bit of story to it, but ultimately it's your typical torture porn, and there's not much beyond that. There was a big thing about people fainting in the theaters, and I think it was literally just because of some of the things they did, because it gets pretty graphic, but as most torture porn does, it's pretty much torture porn with a little bit more solid of a story and pretty good actors. So check it out if you're into that sort of thing. If not, it's whatever. There's better horror movies out there. So anyway, this has been the Chief Ash, and on Goodnight Mommy, and keep watching.
Hello everyone, Nick Fleury here, this week with yet another movie review. We decided here at the Punch Button to review Goodnight Mommy. What does one say exactly? I honestly can't say it was a bad film. The script was well written, the acting was great, the directing was fine, but I think the problem I had with the film is a problem that a lot of other people had, I'm sure, is that they went in expecting one thing and got something completely different. The trailer made the movie to be this grandiose horror film about this disfigured mother, when that isn't really the case. I actually wouldn't classify it as a horror film. It's more a psychological thriller than anything else. If that's your thing, go for it. I love a good psychological thriller, but this movie I didn't care for as much, because mainly I'm not a big fan of torture in films, like torture porn or Saw or any of those. I wouldn't necessarily compare this movie to Saw or anything like that, but torture aspects isn't something I look for in film, especially sort of pointless torture that really ultimately goes nowhere. But if the psychological thriller aspect is something that interests you, I would recommend it. But if I were you, I would avoid the trailer. That is my advice. But if you're looking for a good horror film, this is not the movie to go to. This has been Nick Fleury signing off, and I hope you enjoyed the review.
Subparlobster here, and today we're going to be talking about the movie Goodnight Mommy. Now, Goodnight Mommy is not an American-made movie, and it's not going to feel like it at all. This is going to be something that could be quite jarring depending on what you're used to, but if you like something different, you like something that kind of feels unique, really give this movie a shot, because you could really love it. Now, Goodnight Mommy follows these two twins, Elias and Lucas, and their mother, who has had some kind of accident or some kind of surgery, so she's had to cover her face in bandages. Now, this is kind of what the trailer plays on, and what the movie uses to kind of create its kind of creepiness and kind of the scariness behind it, and it is quite a terrifying movie. I mean, it's not going to jump out at you. It's not going to be one of those movies that you, like a Paranormal Activity, where you have lots of good, like, it jumps out, it scares you, everyone kind of, freaks out, laughs, and then moves on to the next scene. It's not that kind of movie. This is the kind of movie that really wants to lull you into an atmosphere and create tension. There's a huge tension in this movie, and the best way to describe it is it's like going into a nightmare. The movie's confusing and it's disorienting. You don't really get a full idea of what's going on and what really is the truth. The first half of the movie kind of follows the POV of these two kids, and kind of what they go through as they begin to question who this woman is and if it's really her mom. And it's unsettling. I mean, there's scenes where all the mom does is look at you, or look at the characters, look at the camera, or turn around, or maybe she just walks kind of fast through a door, but she's unsettling. I mean, every time she's on screen, she's creepy and she freaks you out. And it's cool, considering that really the only thing it has to go on is that creepy bandage face. As these two kids start to kind of figure out that something's maybe not on the up and up, the movie kind of takes a really huge shift, and about halfway through we have kind of a narrative shift, kind of signified by this visual metaphor, and from there we kind of have it take the place of kind of in the mom's shoes, and you're kind of more seeing the kids as something off and something weird. And that's really what this movie it does well, is it makes you uncomfortable and unsettled. You don't really know who to trust. Even the dialogue between the characters, I mean, you're not given like a lot of plot through that, and you're not really given a lot of truth behind it. You can't really trust what any of the characters are saying because you just really don't know. The movie kind of positions you to feel uncomfortable by everyone and not trust anyone. And the only way to really get what's going on and really kind of tell the story is through the environment and through the setting in the house. And the house actually gives, I think, is really the real storyteller here, because the house, through visual cues and metaphors, kind of tells you what's going on. That's something you don't see in many horror movies today. You don't see movies that really like use the fact that they're a movie to tell their story. Lots of movies love to tell you the story through their characters and then have the creepy shit on the side by monsters or ghosts or whatever else. You know, movies love to show disturbing imagery and let the characters kind of carry the story and carry what is disturbing from thing to thing. No, this movie is not like that. This Goodnight Mommy is gonna tell most of its story through its visual cues. So it's not really something you can kind of put on and just like not really pay that much attention to. You have to really watch this movie. And I feel like if you don't really watch and don't really think about what's going on, you're not really gonna enjoy it, because it kind of revels in that confusion. It wants you to feel disoriented. It wants you to feel confused. Just like a nightmare, like you see things going on, you have an idea, but you don't really know for sure what's true and what isn't. And that's kind of what it does. You even have characters in the movie who are constantly waking up from scarier stuff that they're seeing. And so even through these characters, you're not 100% what's true and what's not, because you don't know who's dreaming and who's not, and who's still sleeping. As I said, there's a great visual cues, and the acting overall is pretty good. Like I said, I mean, lots of the characters don't really say a bunch, they don't really do a bunch. There's a lot of kind of just scenes of characters looking at each other and like that score playing and stuff like that. So it's different. It's definitely a different movie. My one big criticism with this movie is that because of the two very different narrative point of views that it has, in the second half we kind of get a more almost logical and realistic thing that's going on. And it's still creepy, it's still suspenseful, but it kind of takes to using like that torture porn aesthetic, kind of being a movie that forces you to look at things that are kind of unsettling and creepy because of kind of they're horrific to watch, and that's good. I love the implications it has on both the narrative and the themes. Like I think it fits really well in the story. The problem is it goes on for a long time. This movie takes its time to get into the story. It's like walking through a long dark hallway. It's not trying to rush to a conclusion. It's letting you enjoy the experience. The problem is that when you get to that aspect that's a little bit rougher to watch and a little bit more violent, it tends to drag on for quite a while, and it kind of doesn't really match the first half of the movie. This is very much a psychological horror movie in the same vein as something like Jacob's Ladder, and it actually takes a lot of like inspiration from that, right down to a scene that I think is almost like a direct homage to that. But it is slow, and it is quite I don't know, it's quite atmospheric. So if you're not into those kind of movies, this is probably not one you're going to super enjoy, but I think it's worth watching, because by the time we get to the end and we get to the revelation, it's very fascinating. I didn't see it coming. I honestly did not guess what the ending was going to be, and I didn't. I mean, I had an idea what was going to happen towards the end of the movie, but I did not expect what actually happened to happen. So it's worth watching. It's really good. If I had to rate this movie, I'd probably give it somewhere around like a 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. It does a lot of things right with only a few missteps, but it's by no means a bad movie. I think this is easily one of the best psychological horror movies I've seen in a long time, and that's really important, because we don't get a lot of movies that tell stories in this way. Movies are a visual medium, and they're a medium that lets us explore with what we can show and how we can get people to like come to terms with what they're watching and connect the dots. And I always like that form of storytelling, but we don't see it in movies. Movies, even though they can show you things and give you a bunch of dots and let you connect them through the visuals, they don't. They like to have characters carry what's going on and tell you what's going on. We see that in a lot of horror movies, a lot of slashers, a lot of big things that go to the theaters, where the characters are just basically like exposition, creepy shit jumping out at you, more exposition. This movie doesn't do that. Every frame of this movie and every line of dialogue in this movie is important. It all kind of builds towards something more. The visuals and the sound design, or I guess the score, are really effective, because they make you feel unsettled and they make you feel unnerved. Throughout the entire time, I didn't ever feel comfortable with this movie. There was no moment in the movie where I felt like safe. Every second I was kind of questioning what was going on. I was questioning the characters, and even the characters who seemed like they were the kind of almost like the protagonists had weird stuff about them, even if it's just the kids collecting bugs or like cockroaches walking around, and like it's a weird thing to see. The movie had kind of a few parallels to something like The Babadook, but it took it in a very different direction. Even though it kind of had a similar story of like a mom and kids and kind of this like almost commentary on parenting, because it is. I mean, this is essentially a commentary on parenting, but I mean, it's really kind of about control, and it's about like what you expect out of your mom and what you expect out of your kids, and kind of playing with that idea. I really enjoyed it. It's a good movie. It's worth checking out. It's very dreamlike. It's very nightmarish, and it probably is one of the most unsettling things I've seen in a long time. If you're okay with watching something that's super disturbing and not very heavy on direct plot, then you're really going to enjoy this movie. If you're a person who revels in metaphors and revels in like visuals and likes watching things and piecing together the story in their own head, then you're really going to like Goodnight Mommy, I think. If you're a person who likes going to a movie like Paranormal Activity, getting like jump scared and then leaving and not thinking about it again, this might not be your cup of tea. So anyway, check it out, Goodnight Mommy. It's out on DVD now. I can't find it in Redbox, but I'm sure by any means you can get a hold of this movie. Check it out, because I really think you're going to like it. I just wanted to mention something really quick. I'm actually started a blog called Lobsters Take Out, where I kind of share my opinions on movies, video games, and just kind of my thoughts on entertainment and storytelling in general. Goodnight Mommy really piqued my interest, and there's a lot of things I really found interesting about this movie and things that I really want to go more in depth with. I try to keep the review as spoiler-free as possible, but pretty soon I'm going to upload kind of a more spoiler-heavy review and kind of an analysis where I want to kind of break down some of the things this movie's doing and some of the things that just lots of things like that. So I want to go through kind of like English nerd my way through this movie and really kind of dig my teeth in, because I think it's a movie that really deserves that kind of treatment. So if you want to go check that out, go to www.lobsterstakeout.com. We're going to drop a link in the description. Go there, and we should have that. I should have that up pretty shortly, and share it with your friends, and let me know what you think. If you hate my opinions on it, awesome. If you like them, cool. Let me know. And if you have your own opinion about this movie or want to join in the discussion, I'd love to have that. I'd love to have some talk about this movie and kind of see where it goes, because I really feel like different opinions about this movie is going to really kind of make us all come to a better realization of what's really going on here. So go to lobsterstakeout.com and check out what I have to say about it, kind of more in depth. Anyway, see you guys later.
Hey, what's up? This is Nick Fleury here, reminding you to subscribe. And if you have any suggestions as to what we do next, or you want to tell us how we did, drop a comment down below. And if you want to see more, hit that like button.